Maria's trembling hands clutched the faded photograph as she stood in the doorway of her son's bedroom, untouched for 3 long years. The silence was deafening. No laughter echoing through the halls, no footsteps racing up the stairs, no voice calling, "Mom, I'm home!" Just emptiness that seemed to swallow her whole. At 62, this broken-hearted mother was dying from the inside out, her own flesh and blood completely erased from her life as if he had never existed. The room still held traces of David. His college acceptance letter pinned to the bulletin board, his favorite sweater draped over the chair, even that silly coffee mug with "World's Best Son" that she'd given him for his 18th birthday. But David himself, gone, vanished from her world after one catastrophic argument that shattered their family like glass against concrete. If you've ever felt your family falling apart, this story will give you hope. Like this video and subscribe to our channel if you believe in Mary's power to heal families. To create a spiritual chain of prayer for all broken families, write "heal" in the comments below. Let's unite our faith and ask Mary to intercede for every family watching this. What started as a simple disagreement about money had exploded into something so poisonous that it destroyed 24 years of love in a single evening. Maria could still hear the echo of David's final words, "I never want to see you again." The front door had slammed with such force that the family portrait crashed to the floor. Its glass scattered like her dreams of watching him graduate, get married, give her grandchildren. 3 years of absolute silence followed. No birthday calls, no Christmas visits, no acknowledgement that she even existed. Maria's health began failing rapidly. Her doctor said it was stress, but she knew better. She was dying of a broken heart, literally withering away from the unbearable pain of losing her only child to pride and stubborn anger. The worst part wasn't the silence itself, but the complete finality of it. David had blocked her number, returned her letters unopened, and even refused contact through mutual friends. It was as if her son had died, except there was no funeral, no closure, no way to grieve properly, just an endless, torturous wondering if she would ever hold him again. Little did Maria know, as she stood in that empty bedroom fighting back tears, that the Virgin Mary had been watching her suffer. The mother of all mothers was preparing to intervene in ways that would astound everyone involved. But first, Maria would have to face the devastating truth about how everything went so terribly wrong. What she would discover in the coming days would force her to confront the real reason David walked away, and it wasn't what she thought. The truth was far more heartbreaking than the lie she'd been telling herself for 3 agonizing years. The argument that destroyed everything had started so innocently on a rainy Tuesday evening in October. Maria had been struggling financially after her husband's death 2 years earlier, and David, fresh out of college and drowning in student loans, was living at home while searching for his first real job. The mounting bills, the late notices, the constant stress of making ends meet had created a powder keg waiting for a spark. That spark came when Maria discovered David had been secretly sending money to his girlfriend instead of contributing to household expenses. In her exhaustion and fear, she lashed out with words that cut deeper than any knife. "You're just like your father, selfish and irresponsible. I sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay me." David's face had turned white, then red with fury. His response was equally devastating. "Maybe I am like Dad. At least he had the sense to escape from you." The cruelest part was that neither of them meant those words. They were both drowning in grief, stress, and financial terror, but pride prevented either from apologizing. David packed his belongings that very night, moving in with friends and later disappearing entirely from Maria's world. What followed were 3 years of soul-crushing isolation that aged Maria beyond her years. Every holiday became a torture chamber of memories. Christmas mornings found her staring at wrapped gifts she'd bought out of habit, gifts that would remain unopened. David's birthday each March felt like a funeral, marking another year of silence that seemed to stretch toward eternity. Maria tried everything to bridge the chasm between them. She wrote letters pouring out her heart, explaining her fears, begging for forgiveness, all returned unopened with "Return to sender" scrawled across the envelopes in David's handwriting. She called his workplace until they threatened a restraining order. She even approached his friends, who looked at her with pity, but insisted they couldn't betray David's trust. The rejection felt like dying 1,000 small deaths. Each failed attempt drove the knife deeper into her already shattered heart. Maria began having chest pains, panic attacks, and sleepless nights that stretched into weeks. Her doctor prescribed antidepressants, but how could pills heal a mother's broken heart? The breaking point came on a frigid January morning when Maria collapsed in her kitchen, her heart racing so fast she thought it might explode. The paramedics rushed her to St. Mary's Hospital, where tests revealed dangerous levels of stress affecting every organ in her body. As she lay in that stark hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and antiseptic smells, one thought consumed her completely. Her son didn't even know she was dying. The nurse had asked for emergency contacts, and Maria realized with crushing clarity that she had none. David was her only family, her only emergency contact, and he was as unreachable as if he lived on another planet. In that moment of absolute desperation, Maria felt more alone than she ever thought possible. But what Maria didn't know was that her darkest hour was about to become the doorway to a miracle that would astound everyone who witnessed it. That night in the hospital, as machines beeped softly around her and the hallway lights dimmed, Maria felt the weight of 3 years' worth of unshed tears threatening to drown her. The oxygen mask pressed against her face made breathing easier, but nothing could ease the suffocating pain in her soul. In her darkest moment, she reached for the only source of comfort she had left, her worn rosary beads, hidden beneath her pillow. With trembling fingers, she traced each familiar bead as she had done countless times throughout her life. But tonight was different. Tonight, she wasn't just praying for strength or guidance. Tonight, she was crying out to the one person who would understand her anguish, the Virgin Mary, the mother who had watched her own son suffer and die. "Blessed Mother," Maria whispered, her voice barely audible above the medical equipment. "You know what it means to lose a child. You watched Jesus suffer. You felt your heart break as mine is breaking now. I don't know how to live without my son anymore. I'm dying, Mary. Not just my body, but my soul is dying without David." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she continued her desperate plea. "You are the mother of all mothers, the one who intercedes for families everywhere. If there's any way, any possibility that you could touch David's heart, please help us. I don't need him to forgive me completely. I don't even need him to come home. I just need to know he's okay. I need him to know how much I love him." Her prayer became more intense, more personal. "Mary, you know I've made mistakes. I said terrible things in my pain and grief, but you also know that a mother's love never dies, never gives up, never stops hoping. Please, sweet mother, if you have any power over broken families, over stubborn hearts hardened by pride, work a miracle for us. Show David that I never stopped loving him." As Maria's prayer ended, exhaustion overwhelmed her, and she drifted into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. But the Virgin Mary had been listening to every word, and her maternal heart was already being moved to action. The first sign came the very next morning in the most unexpected way. Nurse Patricia, a kind woman with gentle eyes, was checking Maria's vital signs when she mentioned casually, "You know, it's the strangest thing. The patient in room 314 has the exact same name as your son, David Martinez. Isn't that a coincidence?" Maria's eyes flew open, her heart racing for entirely different reasons than the night before. David Martinez, the same name as her son, in a hospital named after the Virgin Mary herself. The odds of such a coincidence were astronomical, but Maria felt something stirring in her spirit, a tiny flutter of hope she hadn't experienced in 3 years. Could this be a sign? Was the Blessed Mother already beginning to answer her desperate prayer? What other miraculous coincidences would Mary orchestrate to bring her son back into her life? While Maria was experiencing her first glimmer of hope in the hospital, 300 miles away in Chicago, David Martinez was living a carefully constructed life designed to forget his past. He'd built walls around his heart so high that not even memories of his mother could penetrate them. But the Virgin Mary was about to begin dismantling those walls, brick by stubborn brick, in ways that would leave him questioning everything he thought he knew about coincidence. It started with small things that David dismissed as meaningless. On his way to work, he passed a billboard advertising St. Mary's Hospital, the same hospital where his mother lay fighting for her life, though he had no idea. The billboard showed a tender image of Mary holding the infant Jesus, with the words, "A mother's love never ends." David felt an uncomfortable pang in his chest, but quickly pushed it aside, telling himself it meant nothing. Later that same day, his favorite coffee shop had inexplicably changed their background music to soft hymns, including Ave Maria. The haunting melody stopped David in his tracks because it was the song his mother used to hum while cooking dinner when he was young. When he asked the barista about the unusual music choice, she looked confused and said, "That's strange. I thought I put on the usual jazz playlist." But Mary's intervention faced fierce resistance, particularly from David's girlfriend, Sandra. She had been instrumental in encouraging David's separation from his family, constantly reinforcing his anger and resentment. "Your mother was toxic." She would remind him whenever he showed any signs of softening. "Remember how she made you feel worthless. You're better off without her manipulation." Sandra became increasingly agitated as David began noticing these strange occurrences. When he mentioned the billboard and the music, she rolled her eyes dismissively. "You're reading too much into random coincidences. Your mother probably hired some private investigator to mess with your head. Don't fall for her games again." The obstacles weren't just external. David's own pride had calcified over 3 years into an impenetrable fortress. Every time a memory of his mother's love tried to surface, he would remember her harsh words that final night and slam the door shut on any tender feelings. He'd convinced himself that he was happier without her, that he didn't need family, that he was perfectly fine on his own. Mary's intervention was just beginning. If you want to see more amazing family miracles, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. But the Virgin Mary was persistent, and her next move would be impossible to ignore. The following week, David's company assigned him to a new project that required him to work with a charity organization. The charity's mission, reuniting estranged families through counseling and mediation. As if that wasn't unsettling enough, the charity was housed in a building directly across from a massive church dedicated to Our Lady of Sorrows. The crisis point came when David learned, through a casual comment from a co-worker, that his mother had been hospitalized. The news hit him like a physical blow, crumbling his carefully maintained indifference in an instant. For the first time in 3 years, David felt genuine terror at the thought of losing his mother forever. But even with this devastating news, would his pride allow him to reach out? Or would he let stubborn anger cost him the chance to reconcile before it was too late? The news of his mother's hospitalization shattered David's carefully constructed emotional barriers, but pride still held him captive. For 2 agonizing days, he paced his apartment like a caged animal, picking up his phone dozens of times only to set it down again. Sandra watched his internal struggle with growing frustration, repeatedly reminding him that his mother probably faked the whole thing for attention. But deep in David's heart, something was stirring that felt bigger than his anger. On the 3rd day, while walking aimlessly through downtown Chicago, trying to clear his head, David's attention was drawn to a small antique shop he'd never noticed before. The elderly shopkeeper, a gentle man with kind eyes, was placing items in the window display. As David watched, transfixed, The man held up a beautiful silver rosary that caught the afternoon sunlight and sent rainbow reflections dancing across the storefront. David's breath caught in his throat. The rosary was identical to one his mother had treasured, a family heirloom passed down from her grandmother that she'd lost years ago during their move after his father's death. He'd helped her search everywhere for that rosary, watching her cry when they couldn't find it. She'd said it was her most precious connection to her faith and her family's history. "Excuse me," David called out, his voice barely steady. "That rosary in your hands, where did you get it?" The shopkeeper's face lit up with recognition, though they'd never met. "Ah, you know, it's the most remarkable thing. A woman brought this in yesterday. Said she found it in an old house she was cleaning out. She insisted I display it prominently because she had a feeling someone would come looking for it soon." "Are you David Martinez?" David's world tilted on its axis. "How do you know my name?" The woman who brought it said if a young man named David Martinez came asking about it, I should give it to him for free. She said it belonged to his family. The shopkeeper's eyes twinkled with an otherworldly knowing. "She also said to tell you that your mother never stopped praying with her replacement rosary every single night, asking the Virgin Mary to bring you home." Tears David had suppressed for 3 years erupted like a dam bursting. His hands trembled as he accepted the rosary, feeling its familiar weight and texture. Every bead told a story of his childhood, of nights when his mother would kneel by his bedside, praying for his protection, his happiness, his future. How had this found its way to him at the exact moment when he needed a sign most desperately? But the miracle wasn't finished. As David clutched the rosary to his chest, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "David, this is Nurse Patricia from St. Mary's Hospital. Your mother asked me to tell you that she loves you and forgives everything. She's asking the Virgin Mary to help you forgive her too. Room 302 if you want to come home." The walls around David's heart didn't just crack, they completely crumbled. Standing on that busy Chicago street, holding his mother's lost rosary while tears streamed down his face, David finally understood that some things transcended human logic. The Virgin Mary had orchestrated every detail to bring him to this moment of surrender. For the first time in 3 years, David was ready to call his mother. But would she still want to see him after all the pain he'd caused her? David's fingers trembled as he dialed the hospital number, each ring echoing like a countdown to either redemption or devastating rejection. When Nurse Patricia answered, her voice was warm with recognition. "David, your mother has been praying for this call every hour since I sent that message. She's awake and asking for you." Is she really dying?" David's voice cracked with 3 years of suppressed emotion. "Son, your mother's body was failing from heartbreak, but I've seen miracles happen when families reunite. Love is the most powerful medicine we have." The drive to the hospital felt both eternal and impossibly fast. David clutched his mother's rosary, whispering prayers he hadn't spoken since childhood. When he reached room 302, he stood frozen outside the door, terrified of the moment that would either heal or destroy what remained of his heart. Maria was dozing when she heard the soft knock. Her eyes fluttered open to see a figure silhouetted in the doorway, tall, familiar, but hesitant. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. Then David stepped into the light and she saw her son's face streaked with tears. "Mom." His voice was that of a lost child, not the angry young man who had slammed the door 3 years ago. "David." The word escaped her lips like a prayer answered. She tried to sit up, but her weakness betrayed her. David rushed to her bedside, falling to his knees beside her bed. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything, for the things I said, for staying away, for letting pride keep me from you when you needed me most." The words poured out between sobs that shook his entire body. Maria's frail hand found his face, wiping away tears she had dreamed of seeing again. "My son, my precious son, I forgave you the moment you walked out that door. I never stopped loving you, never stopped praying for this moment." David pulled out the rosary, pressing it into his mother's hands. "The Virgin Mary brought this back to us, Mum. She brought me back to you. A stranger knew my name, knew about your prayers. How is that even possible?" Maria's eyes widened as she recognized her grandmother's rosary, the one that had been lost for years. Fresh tears flowed as she realized the magnitude of Mary's intervention. "She heard us, David. The Mother of Mothers heard our broken hearts, crying out to each other across the distance." The reunion transformed Maria's condition almost immediately. Her doctor, amazed by the sudden improvement in her vital signs, called it medically inexplicable. Her heart rate stabilized, her breathing improved, and color returned to her cheeks within hours of David's arrival. The nursing staff witnessed something extraordinary that day. They watched a dying woman come back to life simply from holding her son's hand. The other patients' families were moved to tears, and several called their own estranged children that very evening. News of the miraculous reunion spread through the hospital like wildfire. The staff began calling it the Rosary Miracle. A nurse, Patricia, who had been instrumental in facilitating the contact, felt deeply moved by the Virgin Mary's obvious involvement in orchestrating every detail. The immediate impact rippled far beyond the hospital room, touching everyone who witnessed the power of a mother's unending love and Mary's divine intervention in family healing. The transformation that followed was nothing short of miraculous. Within a week of their reunion, Maria was discharged from the hospital with a clean bill of health that astonished her medical team. But more importantly, the relationship between mother and son had been completely reborn, stronger, deeper, and more appreciative than it had ever been before. The harsh words that once divided them became distant memories, replaced by gratitude for the precious gift of family that they had almost lost forever. David moved back home to care for his mother during her recovery, and what began as temporary assistance evolved into a beautiful new chapter of their lives together. They spent long evenings talking about everything they had missed during their separation: David's career struggles, his relationships, his dreams for the future. Maria shared stories about his father that she had never told before, healing wounds that both of them had carried in silence. The most remarkable change was in their communication. Gone were the defensive walls and stubborn pride that had poisoned their relationship. In its place grew a profound understanding that life is too fragile and precious to waste on anger. They learned to discuss disagreements with love and respect, knowing that no argument was worth destroying the bond that the Virgin Mary had worked so hard to restore. This miracle revealed something profound about Mary's special role in family healing. Unlike other saints who might intercede for individual needs, Mary understands the sacred bonds that tie families together because she experienced the ultimate family sacrifice when her own son died for humanity. She knows the agony of watching a child suffer, the desperation of feeling helpless to protect those we love most. Mary specializes in healing broken relationships because she recognizes that families are the foundation of God's love on earth. When families are torn apart by pride, misunderstanding, or hurt feelings, she sees the ripple effect of pain that extends far beyond the immediate individuals involved. That's why she worked so persistently to bring David and Maria back together. She knew that their healing would inspire countless other families to seek reconciliation. The rosary that had been instrumental in their reunion became a symbol of Mary's ongoing presence in their lives. Every evening, David and Maria would pray together using that same rosary, asking the Virgin Mary to bless other broken families and to help them find their way back to each other. Their own miracle had shown them that no estrangement is too deep, no hurt too old, and no pride too stubborn for Mary's healing power to overcome. If you are watching this story while struggling with your own family divisions, take heart. The same Virgin Mary who reunited David and Maria is listening to your prayers right now. She sees your tears, understands your pain, and is already working behind the scenes to heal what seems impossible to repair. Don't give up hope. Mary never gives up on families who call upon her maternal intercession. Have you experienced Mary's healing in your family? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more miraculous family healing stories.